welcome back to the Championship Penitentiary, where this week it very much feels like one. We have a bumper episode with 7 games and a lot of misery to go through. Joining me in our pain and suffering, we have got Enzo. How are you, Enzo?
Yeah, I'm not bad. I think a couple of weeks ago you'd asked me if I thought we were definitely going to finish ninth, and I said come back in a couple of weeks and ask me how we got on after our broth and Airdrie. We get 1 point, so I suppose I'll share a bit more of how I feel about that later on. But away from the football, I'm absolutely fine. It's just unfortunate that I care so much about the football.
And someone who is here to gloat over us all because his team are actually able to kick a ball, it is Kieran Ashton. How are you, Kieran?
I'm no pain and misery over here for once. Absolutely delighted to be on. Talking about 7 games that we've got to talk about this evening. Looking forward to it, and I'm especially looking forward to talk about the Thistle results and how we are doing in mounting a title challenge now. It seems.
Aye, so, right, suppose we better get out of the way, shall we? Friday night action under the lights, and it proved to be fucking shite. Raith against Dunfermline, of course, and Raith coming into this having lost 2-0 at home to Ayr, a result and a performance that I was hoping to be a blip. Meanwhile, Dunfermline had a week off. Fuck me. This was bad. This was really, really bad. So, Dunfermline get their opener through Barney Stewart scoring an overhead kick in the box from a corner where I have no idea what happened. Like, Josh Ray just ran in a direction, like, there was no one marking him. And to me, it's like Barney Stewart's on loan from Falkirk as well, which makes it even worse. And then it's like this, because I don't want to talk about this game as much as any Dunfermline fans listening would want me to. Chris Kane would manage to bundle home a second in the second half after Ray just punches it straight back to him after an initial save. Andy Todd did get a goal, but it was disallowed for offside. But it's like once that hit the net, that was me gone. I'd left. I was like, no, this is awful. This is absolutely dreadful. My concerns from the Air game, where I was like, yeah, we just weren't creating chances, all that sort of stuff, amplified in this game. It was so bad. We were just. It's like I think we had 2 shots on target, and one of them was by accident. It was like it was Scott Brown putting a cross in, and the whoever the Dunfermline keeper is had to punch it over. But yeah, this was just dreadful. Just we created nothing. Just slow in possession. It's like the complaints that we've had about Morton, how they just seem to pass the ball for the sake of it and then hoof it long. That's what we did all game, and it just didn't work. It's like the only time we didn't do that was like the first 10 minutes of the second half, and we looked like we might be able to claw our way back into it, and then just stopped doing that for whatever reason. And yeah, it's like I said about the Air game being a blip. No, this has been coming. It's like I'm very worried now. Robson was proven to be not a popular man at full time, even from myself, if you've seen my Twitter. He has Partick and Morton at the latest to turn things around, or he is out the door. Like, it was loud and clear on that Friday night that we were not happy because we've only scored in 1 game out of the last 6, and in most of those games it's like it started off just like a slow decline, but it's gone off a cliff after that Arbroath game. Really, really bad. It's like that Airdrie game was shocking. We had obviously the Air game where we could have lost by 4. The Dunfermline, by the way, it's like I don't even think Dunfermline were that good. A better side than Dunfermline does what Ayr does and would have won by like at least 4. I don't think Dunfermline really did that much, but they didn't have to because we were just that shit. We were just really, really shit, and I want to move on.
Ugh, um, I mean, I suppose we could dwell on the shit performance that you highlighted there, Callum. I don't know how much you want to do that though. I think you're probably being slightly hard on Dunfermline, and I thought they played well. And yes, you can only beat them, etc. But they played 3 home games prior to that where they hadn't scored a single goal. So I think from their perspective, they were probably just quite happy to sort of unlock the floodgates, I suppose, and then obviously it proved to carry on in their following performance. But from a Raith perspective, I thought you guys were terrible. So I suppose we had the pleasure of watching this, given that it was the BBC game on the Friday night. Raith were really, really poor. I think, I think my concern, I suppose, if I were a Raith Rovers fan, you talk about potentially getting rid of Barry Robson. Um, I'd be slightly worried about the Raith board's ability to pick the right man to come in at this stage. Because obviously, you look back in relatively recent years, and I say recent years, I mean maybe a year and a half or so, and obviously the whole Ian Murray situation where he got sacked after a game. And I'm not saying that was the wrong decision necessarily, but I think if you're sacking a manager after a game, you either do it before the season starts or you give him a wee bit more time than that. And then he was replaced by a guy who ultimately didn't want to be here. And now if Robson turns out to be not the right man as well, I mean, do you have any worries about them bringing in the guy who's actually going to steady the ship and take Raith on the path that you obviously want them to go on, or do you think do you think it's worth taking that risk regardless?
I think it is just a case of if another performance like the last two comes in at the weekend, just another game without scoring, it's going to become very difficult. It's so annoying because it started off so well. It started off so well. Second half of last season we were great, and the first 5 games I thought we were great. But for whatever reason, it's just not worked whatsoever. Like these last 5, 6 games, it's just been dreadful. And it's a case of I'm not sure about. I've not had a look at the manager market. I've not had a look at someone who would possibly come in. And I do get your point about the board because it was a bit of a farce last time around. It's like Neil Collins left, but we got Robson in. I think it was about a week. I think it was about a week between Collins leaving and
Yeah.
Robson coming in. But it's like hiring Neil Collins in the first place was a bit of a farce because it was in that. What was it? It's like he was the first one we went to. Then he rejected us, and then what was it? That guy who was at Linfield, I forgot his name. He fucked around with us for ages, and then to get a new contract at Linfield, we then went back to Neil Collins. So yeah, I do have my concerns about it, but yeah, I've not really looked into who's available. Kieran, your thoughts on this game if you watched it all?
Yeah, I watched it, and from a Raith point of view, really disappointing. Really disappointing. And as you touched on it now, I think that's 3 losses now in a row for you.
Aye, will be.
It's not.
Is
Aye,
that?
and then I think so. I think you've. Aye, not sure it's 3 losses in a row.
Yeah, I think it is. Is
It
it?
was
Let's see.
County
Yeah,
there, and
County. I
then
forgot about County.
yeah,
I had 3-2 losses in a row.
yeah. Aye. As I said, it's looking really. I wouldn't say bleak. I think it's a bit too far saying it's bleak at the moment, but you're on a downward trajectory, I would say. And I mean, you're just wondering when your kind of next win is going to come for you. You know what I mean? Your next goal, that's so to speak, is going to come. And I thought with the chances Rafe had, I just said they only had kind of 2 on target, and other than that, they were very wasteful with the chances that they had, the opportunities that they had, and I looked really. I thought it was completely opposite to the derby earlier on in the season. I thought it was Rafe that looked really toothless up front. We were talking a couple of episodes ago when we were talking about the derby game at Starks Park, and we were saying how toothless Dunfermline were up front. I think it's completely shift now to Rafe, and I it was. But if you're looking at a Palace point of view, it's a really really good result for them. I think that's their first win since Arbroath, the 5-0 Arbroath at Gayfield last month. So it's a really good result for them, and if we're talking about shook the peg, certainly Robson's coat's got to be on one, so to speak. He's definitely on a sugar peg. I think you said you're getting him Morton at the latest. You're getting him us on Saturday, Morton at the latest. I think a lot of Raith fans are saying if he get beat if he beats on Saturday it starts, he's got to go. I think it's came to that point now. And I think Enzo made a good point last week as well on the episode where he was talking about I think it's kind of Robson's demeanour that does it for him. And I think I completely agree. I think he's a really hard guy to kind of come to like, and he's not got that kind of charm about him. I think he's very he's very stubborn at times as well. And he's just a guy that is very hard to come to like. He's not likable at all really. And if he wasn't under serious pressure last week, he's certainly under serious pressure now. And I think you just need to look at kind of Raith's social, kind of their full time tweet and all that, and with the Raith fans that you may have on Twitter. They're certainly not happy with the way things are going.
I think the most damning statement of recent form has been the fact that Pi and Bockro, it's on Twitter. They go on their account. It's like they go through the leagues and they do the form table of the last 6 games. We've got 4 points. Only Airdrie are below us, and that's that is really bad when we consider how bad Airdrie are. So I think that pretty much tells you all we need to know. But I would like to move on from this now. I've had my little therapy session. I've had my rant. We head over to Gayfield, where Arbroath, coming off an impressive 4-1 win against Queen's Park, came up against St Johnstone, who had been still top of the league, but faltering a bit, back-to-back 0-0 draws. But it looked as though service would be resuming for St Johnstone. Josh McPeak getting a 1-on-1, managing to slot home after 5 minutes, and despite numerous opportunities, Saints wouldn't be able to extend their lead in the first half. Second half, however, Arbroath came out swinging. It's like Finlay Marshall manages to get a shot past Toby Stewart, who arguably should have done better. It just kind of goes under his hands. But then, about 5 minutes later, Gavin Riley would give Arbroath a lead after, again, Finlay Marshall would have a shot, but it would be spilled by Stewart into the path of Riley. And then, not long after, a very nice passing move from Arbroath would be finished off by him again, Finlay Marshall, finding the bottom corner. And it's 3 goals in the space of 10 minutes. And it's hard to say it wasn't deserved. Arbroath in that second half were all over St Johnstone. Just the way they pressed and just kept running at them, it was really impressive to see. And it finished 3-1 to Arbroath. And, it's like we were saying about how it's like, they'll probably fall away at some point or whatever. But it's like, with this result, it's like, we've been saying about their expectations of staying up. Could they make the playoffs?
I mean, they could. They definitely could. There's still a long way to go this season. They play some fantastic football. They're really, really exciting to watch. And if I were a Arbroath fan, I'd be over the moon with how this season's going so far. Absolutely no doubt whatsoever that they came up to the Championship thinking, give me 8th place, I'll bite your hand off for that right now. But now, I don't think any of them would take that. I don't think any of them would necessarily. They would probably say, fine, we'll build on that. But I don't think any of them would necessarily be satisfied with that, given how things have been going for them so far this season. And it's just a really, really impressive job being done up there right now. Finlay Marshall, man of the match, clearly on Saturday. He's fantastic. I don't know. I don't know what Arbroath do to kind of build on this. They're going to be one of the really interesting teams to follow in January, because there probably are 1 or 2 gaps in that squad, maybe even a bit of depth that they could build upon. But if they're still in the top 4 come January, they're going to look like a very, very promising destination for any low knees to go out to. And at that point, I mean, if they're still 3rd or 4th come mid-January, I think they absolutely can. I think they will go on a bad run at some point, though, and I think teams like Ayr will go on good runs again. County, I still maintain, will go on a decent run as well. Regardless, though, I'm not criticising them because I think they're a fantastic team and are probably just really, really fun to support and watch right now. St Johnstone, on the other hand, that was coming. That defeat was absolutely coming. I think most St Johnstone fans would agree with me when I say that. It started a few weeks ago, and there's just been a wee bit of kind of malaise set into their performances. I think they've got the ability to turn it around, but it's going to be a bit of a test for Valakari in a sense because obviously his time in the Premiership with St Johnstone, there was always that sort of expectation of they probably will go down. But now that they've started the season really really well, and it looks as though those kind of levels of performance have dropped slightly, it'll be a real kind of testament to him as a manager if he can get them going again to the levels that they were used to seeing for the first couple of months of the season.
It's good. I was going to ask about St Johnstone about how they've gone wrong. Do you reckon, Kieran? Do you reckon they might have just been found out? Is this a case of Valakari having like just the one set style of play and it's just been counteracted by it's like we've got a data set of how St Johnstone like to play. We can shut them down by doing this or whatever because this is three or four games in a row now where they've just looked off it.
Aye, I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix of both. Really, I think it is. I think teams have definitely started to realise how they've played now. I mean, I think they've played everybody in the league now, and I they've come out comfortable winners in base games, but I think as we're now getting towards November, I think teams are starting to kind of find out, and I think the more they frustrating them. I think we've seen that way a couple of times this season. When you frustrate St Johnstone, they don't like it, and I think teams have started to do that. Obviously, I think this game in particular, I think St Johnstone did have chances to once they got their goal, took the lead through McPake. They had chances to extend their lead, but it was just they just didn't do it, and it gave Arbroath I wouldn't say a lifeline, but it gave them something to kind of hold on to heading into half time, and then as you said, Callum, I'll use your word. What you said, they just come out swimming. They just come out swinging, really. And as soon as Arbroath really equalised, they fell apart. You know what I mean? Within 10 minutes, they find themselves 3-1 down. It's as you've said, you've touched on it. It's a great start to Arbroath season. I don't think they'll take just staying up now. I think they'll want to maintain the great start they've got and maintain the momentum they've got. And if that lands them in the playoffs, good, more than deserved. I feel. I think they've probably been helped by teams like your Ayers and your Counties kind of starting slow. I think that's going to become a factor in it, but you can't take it away from them. They more than deserve their place in the league at the moment. And if you're an Arbroath fan, a long way to continue. If they keep picking up these points and keep picking up these wins and these good results, then who knows where it'll lead it. But from a St Johnstone point of view, I certainly. I think Cal put it well and said as well. I think they're starting to kind of struggle up top as well. I don't think they're taking their chances well, and I think it'll be a real testament to the character of Valakari is and the type of manager Valakari is if he can get these players out there on and get them playing at the tempo they were at the start of the season.
I want to go back to Enzo's point about they'll eventually go on a bad run of form. I've just had a look at their upcoming fixtures. So the next game's away against Airdrie, and then it's Ross County at home, Morton away. I'd say the next really tough game is possibly away at Ayr, but that's not for another 3-4 weeks. So with this momentum that they've got going, it is plausible. Like I did write in my notes about like a rerun of the 2020-21 season, but I don't think we're going to go that far when they were challenging for the title. That's not happening. But it's possibly the season before that where they finished fifth. It's like putting a good chance of getting into the playoffs. It's more than doable for them if the way they go. It's even in their it's like the loss against Raith Starks. I thought they were well organised in the first half. I thought they were okay, and it does seem that that game, along with a 5-0 against Dunfermline, were just blips rather than any sort of sign of trouble. They've been they've been just been really good. It's been good this season, but it's like Winston Johnson. It's like we started off this season just being like, yeah, no, just wrap it up. But it's like the way they faltered the last few weeks. It's yeah, it's like they've easily got the quality to turn this around, easy, and I do think Simo will get them sorted. But yeah, it's not looking as runaway points record chasing as we all thought it was going to be.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think they will turn it around relatively soon. If I'm honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me if they picked up another couple of poor results before that happened. But I'd be very curious. It's a shame Cal's not here because I'd be curious to hear from a St John's perspective what it would take for them to potentially start questioning Valakari because they do seem quite enamoured with him. So I'd love to hear his thoughts on that. But I suppose we can ask him next week when they lose to whoever it is they're playing this weekend.
Well, they played Morton, so it'll probably be a
Yeah,
draw.
but capital.
It'll be a draw. 0-0. But speaking of Morton, they were away to Ayr. Now, Ayr, they've been on a good run of form. They come off a 2-0 win against Raith. Meanwhile, Morton had a draw. They managed to. Well, Partick got a very, very late equaliser, but with the way that game was going, they were lucky for it to be just a draw for Morton. But it's like with this one, it was a fairly equal first half, I would say, judging by the highlights. But Ayr would manage to take the lead just before half time. Marco Roos manages to find the bottom corner in a fairly crowded box. Cammy Valentine would manage to smash over an equaliser for Morton with 15 minutes left. And it's at this point where it's like, here we go, it's Morton, they're getting another draw. But then Morton would concede one of the funniest penalties I have seen for a good while. So, Ayr on the attack, the ball's down the right hand side. In frame, you can see a Morton player who is down, feigning injury. It's like the ball gets played into the box. It's just like a short pass, and it goes to an Ayr player. But it's like the Morton player wins the ball, turns around, but at the same time, it's like hands up against the Ayr player, pushing him a bit. The Ayr player falls over, and then it's like watching from both the highlight angle and the one that I'd seen on Twitter, which is from the other side of the pitch, so like closest to where the incident happens. It doesn't look like the Ayr player touches the Morton player, but the Morton player falls over onto the ball and then rolls over, holding the ball, and concedes a penalty. Because obviously he's fallen on the ball expecting to be given a free kick. Nope, he's just conceded a penalty. I think this happened with Sean Byrne last season at Somerset, where it's like he got bundled over and he fell. It's like the ball was rolling into the box. He just put his hand out and just grabbed it, expecting to win a free kick. But no, he was last man and got sent off. So very funny that it's happened basically 2 years in a row at Somerset. But amazingly, Anton Dowds steps up and misses. And it's like you're thinking Morton have really got away with it here. No. A ball would come into the box and Ben Dempsey would manage to slide in and it finishes 2-1 Ayr. Morton looked to be in trouble.
I mean, it depends on how you define trouble. if I'm a Morton fan, I'm actually not that concerned about losing a one-off game 2-1 to Ayr. I'm probably raging. I can't recall who the Morton defender that gave the penalty was. What was his name? Sorry, do you know who
Delaney.
that was? Delaney. Yeah. If I'm a Morton fan, I'm less angry about the. So I'll get on to the result in a second. Let me talk about the penalty. Actually, that's insane, man. You play to the whistle, even if you think you've
Hmm.
been fouled, even if he has been fouled. If I'm a Morton fan, I'm raging about the fact that he just assumes that's going his way. There might have been a foul. I don't know. I don't particularly care. That is insane, and that is enough to at least get you dropped for a week. I think because it's just an absolutely wild moment of madness that's cost his team significantly. But in terms of Morton's results, right, I don't think losing a game 2-1 to Ayr is the end of the world because at the end of the day, losing games is going to happen. Everybody in this league is going to lose games at one point or another. The main issue is more over the piece that they're just not turning more of these draws into wins because if you turn two of those draws into wins, and then instead of drawing where you lose it, that's still more points over the piece than what it would have been if you draw another game, which was probably the best they were going to get on Saturday. I don't know. I don't know how they turn that around and start stringing more victories together because it seems to be a problem from that perspective. Callum, they probably are in trouble. Yeah, if they can't start picking up more wins. I mean, there's a couple of teams in that boat, I suppose. If they can't start picking up some wins, then all it takes is one or two of the teams below them to win one or two games, and all of a sudden they're right in a battle for the relegation spots instead of looking upwards.
Yeah, I was going to say that was sort of my main concern. It's like I get your point about it's like this is only their second loss, but they've only got one win,
Yeah.
and that came against Airdrie, and that barely counts at this point with the way Airdrie's season has gone.
Hmm.
It is that just inability to win that is really costing them here. It's like, of course, it has been the SFA conspiracies to relegate Greater Ormond going to Aiden, but they just don't look like a team that can win. They just don't. They just don't.
No, they don't, and I don't know what the solution to that is, to be honest with you, because I think they have decent strikers. They don't really concede that many goals either. It seems to be linking both of those up together and just putting in a complete performance from start to finish that they're seriously lacking.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. I think only two teams have conceded less than Morton, but the thing is, they're on 10 goals, which is trying to think. There's Queens Park and Airdrie who are both on 8, and then it's themselves and Raith on 10.
Yeah.
So it's very much just a low score draw team that just can't seem to grind out a win. Kieran, your thoughts on this game or the penalty or Morton?
I think you've pretty much nailed it on the head. Pretty much, with the game itself, I thought it was a pretty cagey start to the game, end to end. You would well, I wouldn't say end to end as such, but pretty uneven start to the game. The real chances were created by their side, but Ayr probably looked like the team that were likely to take the lead. But that penalty incident, I think that's just going to be the talking point of this whole game. You're taught from a young age to play to the whistle, aren't you? That is basic stuff, and it's just I don't know what's happened there, man. I've got my notes as an absolute clown show for Delaney. Yeah, but I don't know what's happened there with him, but what he's thinking. And I had a wee look at the replies to the Morton tweet, that a full time tweet, and it just says it all, and even the penalty, that the incident as well, when he posted about it. They're absolutely insane with them, and rightly so, rightly so. I I mean, for a Morton kind of point of view, um, you could say they're starting to kind of be in trouble, but there's teams worse than them in this division. Sorry, Enzo, and sorry to any Airdrie fans that are listening. There probably are worse teams in the division, but I as you said, that there's teams in this league that can, Airdrie or Queens Park, could start, you know, picking up results here, like 2 results here, 2 wins here, and they're right back in it. They're right in the dogfight. So, I Morton fans can are at the moment. I think they're all right, but if things don't go their way and teams below them start picking up results, the alarm bells should certainly. I think they would certainly start ringing for them. But from an air point of view, I think they deserve the win. Pretty much, I think they deserved it overall. Really, the I think they were a better team overall and deserved it. And now they're starting to pick up a couple of wins now and starting to climb up the table. Then and I long may it continue. We'll come to the game on Tuesday night, obviously, but
Long may it
you
continue, he
know.
says, knowing what happened 5 days later or whatever it was, 4 days later.
But if you're their fan, you're certainly thinking, you're certainly wanting. Sorry, um, hopefully it's properly, starting to mount a challenge for the playoffs. So it's really good result for them.
It's like that result. It put them. It cemented themselves in fourth because it meant that they were 3 points clear of us with a game in hand and 4 points clear of Dunfermline. So, would it have been 4 points? No, it would just. Yeah, there would have been 5 points actually. They would have been 5 points clear of Dunfermline, and it's like them two would have just had the same amount of games played. So yeah, it very much seems that Scott Brown's A United has made a return, and they're looking good for a playoff finish. Speaking of the game that's in 5 days' time, we might as well talk about one of the teams involved in that one. Partick Thistle were at home to Ross County. Now, Partick coming off a last gasp draw against Morton after eventually battering down the hatches. County, meanwhile, back-to-back clean sheets thanks to a win against Raith and a draw against St Johnstone. Kieran, I believe you're at this game. Let's go through it then.
I think as you pretty much said with Jolly Morton, looking to go into Saturday to go back to winning ways. Obviously, before the game I think we were 8 unbeaten. So wanting to continue that run, so to speak, but also want to get back to winning ways after the draw to Morton, especially after we battered them. But we weren't taking County as mugs. They were starting to come into a game, starting to come onto a game, as you said, 2 clean sheets in a row now, and they're starting to look that they've got their act together, so to speak, and they started the game, the better team, I thought, on Saturday. Josh Clark in particular was called into action on 2 occasions. We dealt with him well. He made the saves, but I made 2 good saves for Ronan Hale. But I thought Ross County certainly were a better side on the first half. On Saturday, we had some chances of our own, so to speak, but I felt we lacked any real cutting edge. We were getting into good positions. Chalmers were getting in good positions, putting balls into the box, but I thought County on the whole were dealing with it well. And then, the first half came to a close, and I think if any team looked like they were scoring, it probably would have been County, considering the chances that they had. But the second half comes, and on the 56th minute, we take the lead. We have a really, really good team goal. All starts with Wallace up the other end of the pitch. He was in their own box, shielded the ball really well, and then passes the ball to Ocean Smith out wide. He then played it on to Sosa on the right hand sideline, and then passes it on to Watt. And then Smith, I think it was just outside the halfway line, plays a fantastic ball over to Logan Chalmers on the left hand side. Of our box, then dribbled into a good position, just near the byline, and then puts in a lovely cross for Ocean Smith, who would run into the box and latch onto it, and put it beyond Carson for his first Thistle goal. And despite County being the better team the first half, I thought the second half, I think it deserves the lead, to take the lead on Saturday, and then after that, pretty much nothing happened up until the 93rd minute there was a chance for County, but that was kind of smothered well by Josh Clark, and then we had a chance to kill the game stone dead in the 93rd minute. Um, but I Samuel cut the ball back to Stanley, but he just Carson sorry managed to get a foot to it, and I ultimately I pretty good win. I felt I think we were I think in the first half we certainly looked a bit, I wouldn't say dodgy defensively, but we let County in quite a few times, as I said. But Clark dealt with them well. But I overall in the second half I thought it was a lot more even competition. And I think we overall deserved the 3 points. We are second half performance, but now that result moved us within 3 points. At St Johnson, obviously, we were learning about our result, our full time result against Arbroath, and our ears started to perk up. I thought after hearing that, thinking something could be on here. I think that was certainly the chat in the pub after the game and all that and whatnot. Speak to Thistle fans after the game, thinking we could probably mount a challenge here. Obviously, again, early days, anything can happen in this league, but St Johnson certainly aren't running away with it as we thought, as we also obviously spoke about earlier on in this episode. But I again, that's us. That was us now 9 unbeaten in the league. After that, so especially with how the season started, the turmoil, in the summer and that, I would have bit your hand off for this position. I wouldn't have thought we'd be in this position at all. So it's really looking good for us, and it was a great result on Saturday.
Is like my main point from this game is it's like with this result and a certain other County are down in ninth again, but having seen County 3 times, twice under Cowie and now once under Doherty, has there been any real difference? Have they looked better under Doherty versus Cowie?
I think they have. I think they have looked better under. I think they're certainly improvements there. They're not shipping daft goals that they were under Cowie. I felt. I think they look a lot more resolute at the back. I think they look a lot. I think they look pretty solid at the back, compared to what they were under Cowie. I think they were losing daft goals, at the back. An attack. I mean, they've still got drawn in Hale, and he seems to be a threat regardless. He was a threat even when Cowie was here. But I think there is certainly an improvement under him. But I think again, you could say that they're pretty wasteful with their chances as well, the chances that they get. They're not as clinical as they probably should be with the attack they've got. But I think there's definitely improvement under Doherty.
It
I
seems like
think,
there's life.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think as well. Obviously, County got that win against Raith a couple of weeks ago, and that was finally their first win of the season. Then they went to St Johnstone and scraped a draw. Um, But I think from their perspective, Thistle away was probably the worst game they could have had to follow that up with, just in terms of Thistle being on really good form. The fact that they'd already lost to Thistle twice this season in 2 different competitions. Any other game, and say it was us or Arbroath, or even I know Arbroath are playing well, but Airdrie, whoever, pretty much any other game, I think Thistle County win again, let's say, and you're starting to think, right, okay, that's 2 wins and a draw in our past 3 games. I do wonder how this will sort of impact them going forward, generally speaking, though, because um, I don't know. It almost feels as though it's knocked the wind out of them a wee bit. And County
Mhm.
fans who were starting to, and from my perspective, from what I've read online, starting to feel slightly more optimistic about their chances of improving and doing something this season. Maybe that was a wee bit of a reality check for them. Now, I maintain that they'll come good eventually, and it just wasn't the game for it. Unfortunately, it wasn't the game for it. The fact that they kept it to, I mean, ultimately it was a relatively tight game in the end, um, is something that they can maybe take some positives from. But at the end of the day, it's another loss, and they've had far more of them so far this season than they were anticipating.
Like you say, easily like if they had played Airdrie next, or maybe even Queens Park or whatever, maybe even us, then you could have seen them it's like you say, a second win now for the last three unbeaten. It's a different story. It's like with if they had won, then they could have been tied with Morton on 11 points to be closer to. Would they be? Yeah, they'd be closer to the playoffs than they would be to the bottom. But with a loss, they're down to ninth, and it does seem like it is going to come good for them though. It's I think what were the previous results? What were the other two results against County Kieran? Was it like 3-0 and 3-1 or something?
It was 3-1 on both occasions. 3-1
Aye.
in the League Cup and 3-1 in the league.
So it's like it does show there is progress there.
Mhm.
It's just a case of getting a run together, and we'll have a look at what the upcoming is. Like they play Dunfermline next, who as we get onto are in good form, and then after that Arbroath again, they're on good form, and then Ayr again. They're just getting a brutal.
I know these other teams are playing well, but Thistle are genuinely the worst team they could have faced. But
Nah.
right now, Thistle are, for a variety of reasons, it was the worst possible fixture for them. How they kind of reflect on that, improve and move forward is going to be the real testament and real indication as to whether they have legitimately turned a corner or not.
I think Dunfermline of the next three that I mentioned were the only ones that are in the playoffs as of right now. So it will be
Not yet,
interesting.
not yet, Cal.
Not yet.
You'll enjoy that when it happens.
I will not. But as of right now, Dunfermline are the only ones in the next three that aren't in the playoffs. So that's arguably one that they'll hope to look at and get a win out of, please. But I will move on to the last of the Saturday games. Queen's Park against Airdrie, the battle of the bottom two going into it. Queen's Park having lost 4-1 away at Arbroath the week prior. Airdrie week off due to the internationals. Enzo, tell us
Yeah,
about
well, the biggest factor going into this game is yet again Josh Fowler was out of the squad entirely. Based on what Sean Crichton said, he's almost there, and he was training a bit this week, and he did want to play, but they didn't feel like it was a good idea to risk him. So that's the Airdrie game he missed, the Arbroath game the week before that, and then the Dunfermline game the week before that again. You could see that he wasn't 100% himself just from the way he was moving out there on the park. And unfortunately, we are so heavily reliant on his goals that I feared that nothing each was probably the best we could have done today. So today, I say on Saturday, it was a bit of a strange game, if I'm honest with you. In lieu of Josh Fowler being able to play at all, we started with Seb Drozd up front and Grant Savoury just behind him. And honestly, it wasn't bad. There were times where we managed to break Airdrie's defence down quite nicely. But unfortunately, for all the ability that Seb Draws has, and for the fact that he is still a hero for that goal that he scored at Ibrox for us, he's just his decision making when he's on the ball, when he's in a good area, is it's as bad as you'll ever see. He almost always, without fail, passes when he should shoot and shoots when he should pass. And if he can sort that out, if he can kind of engage his brain a wee bit more, what a player he would be. But he hasn't been able to figure that out yet. I think over the course of the game, Airdrie probably had slightly more of the ball, and I would imagine the statistics will show that they did have more shots, but that's because they were struggling to break us down, so they were just taking pop shots from left, right, and centre without really coming particularly close to scoring, I felt. Whereas we had fewer shots, but the shots that we had were certainly closer to actually finding the back of the net. There was one just before half time where I think it was Sean McGinty essentially cleared it off the line from Grant Savoury, I believe it was. But it was a terrible game of football between two teams who don't obviously look very good. I think it's just, I mean, this was always going to be an issue for us. Squad depth. The minute anybody goes out, the minute we lose key players, we're going to struggle. And that seems to be what's unfortunately happening here. Airdrie were poor, although for all they were poor, they did actually manage to put the ball in the back of the net at one point in the second half. Fortunately, the linesman had his flag up. I was just behind it, so I couldn't really see. I mean, when the ball was played through, I certainly wasn't looking for offside, so it was a bit of a relief when I saw that flag go up. Um, but yeah, for as poor as we were, and for as poor as Airdrie were, and I don't want to linger on this too much. If Josh Fowler was on the park, we would have sneaked that game 1 or 2 nil. I'm 100% certain of that because we got the ball into the right areas often enough that his ability and his finishing and everything else that he brings to the game would have been enough. A draw is a bad result, I think. We really needed to be winning that game. However, it's not quite as fucking catastrophic as losing to Airdrie would have been. So we're up to eighth for now. The only problem is the fixtures get quite difficult from here. Although I actually feel that at points this season we've actually looked better and been more in games against teams that on paper are significantly superior to us. I don't know if it's just the way we play because we are quite capable, especially again with Fowler on the park. We are quite capable of pressing teams and doing a bit of damage that way. Um, so, I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy with how the past 3 games have gone for us. I'd love to say it could have been worse because it could have been worse, but we're sitting here having played 11 games in the league now, and we've won one of them, and we've played 5 of those at home. We've drawn 2 and lost 3 of them. The home form is rubbish. But I suppose again you could be Airdrie where their form everywhere is rubbish and haven't won any games so far.
Now it's like you did sort of allude to it in the intro about how it would have been a couple of weeks ago when I would have asked about panic stations, and you did say come back to after the
Yeah,
Arbor Airdrie games.
I'm not. I'm not panicking. I'm definitely not panicking because I mean, look, if we win a game, 2 games, we're suddenly fifth or sixth just because of the nature of this league. I just don't know where those wins are necessarily going to come from. Um, I don't think it's worth panicking at all until you get to 18, 20 games into the season and you're looking miles off it. I think this league is just far too volatile. I've seen it. We've all seen it ourselves with our own teams over the years. I mean, I know that you're, Callum, you're obviously worried about Raith at the minute, but ultimately these aren't a million miles off. And obviously Kieran and Thistle are in great form right now, but you suddenly lose 3 or 4 games
Aye.
and you start sliding away significantly. It's a wild division. So no, I'm not panicking yet. I have my concerns, but my concerns aren't necessarily about the players that we've got or the effort that they're putting in. It's just about keeping them fit, and then them doing the business when on the park. And I think I've said this before on this podcast, but one of the one of my biggest complaints last season was that we had a team that looked for large spells of time to not care. They just looked as though they didn't want to be there. And that's something that you couldn't possibly accuse this team of. The effort is 100% there. So if if the worst should happen, but it's not for a lack of trying and just because the squad isn't quite up to the standard, I'm happy to take that in the chin, if I'm honest with you.
I mean, it is a case of, it's like we all know what's been going on with Queen's Park, so I'd imagine
Yeah.
it's like you sort of expected a season like this, but I suppose there is solace in the fact that it looks like the players actually care. Like you said, it's like last season it just looked like you just looked like you were going to be going down without much of a fight.
Yeah,
I think you would have finished ninth without the Aki's point deduction,
we would
and
we would have we would
you would
have.
have.
Although last season doesn't count because it was just. I mean, we were fielding a back line of loanees for like half of the season, and it was just that the lack of commitment that these guys showed, just knowing that they were going back to their parent clubs, was something I've never seen in professional football before. Guys like Leon King, Ben Jackson,
Mhm.
I will genuinely never forgive them. So all it would have taken was 1 or 2 more wins that we should have got, and last season would have been very different. Um, but I prefer not to discuss that too much. But yeah, I mean, you say that a lot of people would have expected this is kind of the season that we would have having. I think honestly, before the season started, and like I said, we've played 11 games so far. I think a lot of people would have predicted us to have actually lost more than 4 out of our first 11 games. We've drawn a lot of them, and we've unfortunately not been able to convert one or two at least of them into the wins that I think we should have had. Um, but if we can get a couple of guys back and hopefully avoid more long term injuries, I'm still not I'm still not too nervous quite yet. Once we start getting cut adrift, then yes. But there's we'll see how the next few weeks go.
Is it up? Kieran, any thoughts on Queen's Park?
I think pretty much Enzo just kind of nailed it on the head, so to speak. Like, I think the game itself wasn't a good game of football. I think Airdrie, I the stats may say that they had the better the ball and that better chances, but they were just taking pot shots. You know what I mean? And I think the highlights reflected that. With Queens Park, it seems that the players do care. Do care. They want to get this. You know, they want to start picking up the wins. You can see it, that the performance and their effort is there. You can see that. But it's just nature of this league, innit? You can end up, like hooking up a run, and you're right back in it. You know what I mean? You're flying up the leagues again. But I I think for Enzo's sake, you're looking you're not saying you're looking good or whatever, but the effort is there, but it's just I think it's your injuries and that the players that are out, the players that are unavailable. I think that's where the main concern is. But I think Queens Park, as you said, you will get the points and that, but and it is due, it's coming with the effort and that, but it's when the points and when the wins are coming, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you want it to be sooner rather than later before you are suddenly cut adrift,
Yeah. For all I keep saying that I think Ross County will come good, I hope they don't, for our sake. The best thing that could happen is Ross County to just completely capitulate and decide never to pick up any points again, but don't know how realistic that is.
I suppose we'll cover the other side of this fixture, but Airdrie, they played against Dunfermline Tuesday night, and as we just talked about, an 0-0 draw with Queen's Park, Dunfermline coming off a win. This was just a bloodbath. This was bad for Airdrie once again. Andy Todd gave the Paz a lead with a header after 39 minutes. 3 minutes later, he gets a second after poking home a ball that just came across the goal at the front post. Second half, after a bizarre piece of play at the back, Matthew Todd would intercept a pass from the goalkeeper and just roll the ball into the net, but from like 25 yards out and at a weird angle. I have no idea what was going on with it. It just
know?
looked comical. It's like it was in slow motion. You could just see what was happening, and it's like, oh, that's managed to go in. It was a weird one, but and then it's like Lee McStravick would get sent off for it was a late challenge, and I presume his studs were up, and I'm not sure if it's too fitted for whatever reason. There wasn't a replay of it, like a slow motion replay of it, but I got sent off for 10 minutes to go, and then Chris Kane made it 4 for Dunfermline at the end, poking home a loose ball. That result put Dunfermline up to 5th. We don't talk about who they've gone above, but it does seem like Neil Lennon has got something to work there.
Yeah, they're a good team. I know that you hate to admit that, but they are a solid enough side who have started to. I mean, they're a young team, and they are lacking experience in probably some quite key areas of the park, especially with people like Chris Kane, who's been struggling a bit recently. Although obviously he got the goal last night, so fair play to him. But I think so. My one of my major concerns with Dunfermline this season was that this young team probably wasn't the sort of squad that Neil Lennon's capabilities as a manager would get going. I thought there maybe would be a bit of conflict there, and they'd maybe need the sort of guy to put their arm around, to put an arm around them a wee bit when things aren't going well. And my sort of view of Neil Lennon is actually he's more likely to go in and scream his head off. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe he's actually a bit softer with his teams and a bit more personable. And maybe he is good at getting these young guys up for it and teaching them and showing them where they can improve and things that they're already doing well. I don't know, but regardless, it's been a very, very good week for Dunfermline Athletic. And they'll be rightfully thinking that they should they're in a place now where they absolutely can make a go at finishing in the top four. Airdrie, where I mean that was just like that's as bad a performance as you'll ever see at this level. They were you can't play a game of football at home and not have a single shot on goal. That's criminal. That is absolutely criminal. Um, I don't know. I don't know where they go from here. You didn't break the news there, Callum,
No,
about Airdrie. You're going to go come on to that
I was going
afterwards.
to
I'll let
raise on
Kieran
to the
share his.
this bit, but yes,
I'll let Kieran share
the
his
news
thoughts
that
on the game
came
first. Then
so the news that came on the morning of us recording this podcast was the fact that yes, Danny Lennon is gone. He's been in the battle of the Lennons. One has gone. His tenure at Airdrie lasted 8 games, and he boasts a record of 6 losses, 2 draws, 5 goals scored, 15 against, and 1 scheduled guest appearance at another championship club. So it was fun seeing you back in management, Danny. I don't see him getting another job anytime soon. I mean, like
has
we
there
did sort of
has there ever
question the
been?
appointment in the first place. We were like, why
Yeah,
have they gone for him? And I think there was something to do with the contract. He was on like a rolling monthly contract or something.
Mhm.
allegedly.
And considering there's a week left of October, might as
I just
well.
I don't think there's ever been a more obviously bad appointment in football. Like I don't think any manager has ever taken any job, and the overall consensus was so overwhelmingly this is not going to work. As Danny Lennon taking the Airdrie job.
Aye.
Well, he can at least take solace in the fact that one of those points was a nil-nil draw against Raith. I
The one
hate
against us as well.
it. Nice one, lads. But Kieran, your thoughts on Dunfermline and Airdrie, I suppose.
Aye. Just talking about the game, man. We're just going to talk about the game. It was an absolute massacre, wasn't it? It could have been and should have been 7 or 8, maybe even more than that. It was really bad. Even like just looking at some of the goals we conceded as well. That Matty Todd one just kind of just sums up how bad Airdrie are at the moment. How bad their defence is, just how bad in general they are at the moment. They didn't look threatening at all, really. Probably, I think when they were 3-0 down, I think they had I wouldn't even call it a shot on goal, but I think they had a chance. But 3-0 down at home, and that's your only chance. It's brutal, absolutely brutal for this level. And, you know, you can understand why they're down there. You're down there and cut adrift, pretty much. I mean, people saying, oh, they're not cut adrift yet. I think they are cut adrift now. I think that's now, what, 8 points behind, I think? No, 7?
They're 4 points behind Ross County, 5 behind Queen's
4
Park.
points. Aye.
4 points is a
Um,
lot for them, though.
4 points are
aye.
winless. They just look doomed.
Yeah, definitely. But aye, for Dunfermline, certainly. Again, the wins are keeping running. Fantastic week for them. And now they'll be certainly wanting to mount a challenge for the playoffs. And I think the only way they're looking at the moment is up, Dunfermline, considering their form and where they are. You know what I mean? So I know, really good for a Dunfermline performance. Probably. I mean, I don't think. I don't think it was obviously when he beat Arbroath 5-0, but I think that's up there probably the best games of the season, the best of luck this season, and they're probably gutted that they never slung 8 past Airdrie, maybe even more on Tuesday night. But it's not looking good, and ultimately led to Danny Lennon's dismissal, and I don't think they was surprised at all when you seen that. Obviously, 8 games in, and you've only lasted 8 games. It's a bit mad, but I as soon as as soon as even it was announced, you just knew it wasn't a good appointment, just as Enzo said, and it's not looking good for Airdrie at all at the moment.
As we were saying about this point last season, how they were doing, but then through the miracle of Reece McCabe's management, Airdrie being a basket case. I mean, they've done that again today. Thanks, but
You mean
yeah,
Aki's?
it's nice
Do you
to
mean
stay
Aki's?
up last season, but it's not happening this season. It just doesn't. And more on the point of what Enzo was saying about Dunfermline having a young squad, I'd seen a thing before kick-off on Friday. Their starting 11 average age for the game against Raith was 21.4, which is mad. It's insane how young that squad is, but it's like I'm not sure. My one concern is with Dunfermline is going to be inconsistency. Just with a squad that young, it's just going to happen. It's ultimately what I think will hold them back, but I think they'll be happy with possibly a fifth or a sixth at a minimum. When you consider last season, they have very much improved. I know they would have had the hopes of a playoff, but it's like with injuries to experienced players, it is a case of it's just a case of inconsistency. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they're consistently shit for the rest of the season. But that's all I'm going to say about them. And we move on to our final game. Partick Thistle versus Ayr. Now, before this game, Partick, a win would have put them level on points with St Johnston. A win for Ayr, meanwhile, would have put them a point behind Thistle and then third. So, pretty important game, this one. Kieran, were you at this one as well?
I was, yeah. And I mean, I think heading into the game, quietly confident. We beat Ayr in the League Cup. We played them in the League Cup this season, and this is when I think that was when they were properly shit. I think now they were starting to kick on a bit. So heading into the game, we were under no illusions that Ayr were mugs because they're not. Now they've started to come on to a game. They've started picking up wins now. So I think for both teams, this was a massive game, but pretty much the first half, I felt it was all us. We had all the pressure. We were creating chances, so to speak. We just lacked, the final product, the finishing product, and Chalmers, particularly once again, he's always getting into these good positions, and I think if he continues his good form, and he continues his goal contributions, I think we're going to struggle to hold on to him in January. Obviously, I think he had people sniffing about him in the Premier League, in the Premiership. He had a few teams sniffing about him, but he opted to he decided to stay. So whether he doesn't, whether he wants to stay at the end of the season or not is, be perfect. But I think if he keeps him up, man, I don't think he's going to knock back a move to the top flight certainly. But again. I was kept getting into good positions and to cross the ball, but we just lacked that kind of end product. And Ashcroft then had to come off. There was a bit of concern. Ashcroft had to come off I think it was like 2 minutes before half time. I think he looked to have done something to his calf, which was a bit it's a bit concerning considering how well Ashcroft has been for pretty much his entire time at Thistle so far. I think he's a really solid centre back still at the age he is. I think he's really good. So he was replaced by Luke Macbeth, and due to that stoppage, Ayr managed to take the lead. Whether that's a surprise lead or not, take that what you will. But Ayr managed to go 1-0 up. Ethan Walker pretty much against the run of play, you would say, right before half time, which is a shit time to concede. And Clark did manage to get a foot to it, but it just kind of rolled under him and into the back of the net. And we go into the half 1-0 down. I'd say undeservedly. I thought we played really well. I would like that end product, but you could say that's not so good that we were not so clinical. But I think overall, I think we were a team that looked at scoring, and obviously didn't happen that way. Ayr took the lead just before half time. By the second half time came, and we looked to bounce right back straight away and start off where we left. Start where we left off. Sorry, and we did that. 30 seconds into the first half. Mitchell had the ball in his hands and tries to kick it out, but he couldn't it. He slipped. And it falls to the air player. But it did manage to get to an air player, but he's dispossessed by Ocean Smith, who passed it on to Chalmers again. Gets himself in a great position. Dribbles past the air left back and puts a ball in the box for Lit Sosa, who gets his first league goal of the season, and instantly we're right back in the game. And then we're looking at that going like that get in, that's great. We've just got a goal right after the half time. It's a shit time to concede right before half time, but it's certainly excellent when you equalised right after the second half comes, and then on the 50th minute we turn it around instantly, pretty much. 5 minutes after we can 5 minutes after we scored the equaliser, we take the lead, and Kyle Ure, is dispossessed in the airbox by Stanway, who then curl a ball right over Mitchell's head. There's a kind of debate of whether it took a nick off Kevin Holt, but regardless, on the way in, but regardless, it was a beautiful, beautiful finish. Stanway does so well to dispossess Kyle Ure, and I 2-1 down. That I would never have thought I'd see the day Thistle would score, 5 goals and no 5 goals, 2 goals in 5 minutes to turn things around into a game that is unheard of. Supporting Thistle, it's normally teams doing that to us, so the fact that they're doing that's fantastic. And Stanway is another one where I hope we get him tied down to a contract. I think his contract's up at the end of the summer. I really want to see him getting a contract extension really soon. I'd hate to lose him either in January or the end of the summer. But the boy who gave Ayr the lead, but then I don't know if you've seen this. He gets sent off in like really bizarre circumstances. So he was down injured, and then he was also told to get treatment off the pitch. So then he then re-entered, but he was on a booting. He then re-entered without the referee's permission. So he entered the pitch earlier than what that the referee ever told him to do it, and he received a second yellow and get sent off. So that was nuts. That was absolutely bizarre seeing that. I didn't even realise. Yeah,
I know you
what?
have to get referee's permission to come back on.
Yeah.
I didn't realise there was a bookable offence.
Yeah, neither did I. I didn't even know what happened until I just seen the player walking down into the dressing room, and I'm like, "What is going on?"
It's
Yeah,
it's one of these rules though where you're thinking, right, okay, yes, the referee is there to enforce the rules of the game, right? But like of however many thousand people are at this game and however many more are watching it on a stream at home, how many people have actually seen that happen? How many players are even
yeah,
prepared to kind of to adhere to that rule? It just doesn't happen. Like you can
no,
have a wee. I know obviously you're not going to be complaining about it, but you have a word with the guy, don't you? And then say, right,
hmm
next time. It's just I don't know. Rules are
I
rules,
don't know if
I
he's,
suppose.
I don't know if he's kind of said something to the ref. Sorry to cut you off, Enzo there, but I don't know if he said something to the ref when he's kind of tried to have a word with him because it went down as dissent rather
Aye,
than I don't know
yeah.
if something's happened there, but I that was also a reason given that he entered the pitch, and you're like, that's wild. To be honest, that's a wild um, reason to get a yellow. I mean, as you said, you would normally have a talk to him whether he's again bit back to the referee and kind of say something back to the referee when he's been over to a word with him. But nonetheless, that was something I'd never seen before, certainly. But overall, man, I thought it was a really complete performance. I generally think as well we're due giving a team a real good hiding. I don't know if that comes on Saturday. I don't think it does. I think Raith will still get their standard 3-0 win against us at Starks.
Please,
But
please don't do it
fucking,
to
I've
us.
spoken into existence now, so I know what's going to happen. But overall, I think it was a really complete performance, and certainly makes the top of the table really interesting now. And I think again, if St Johnstone get going, then fair enough. I think we've gave that a good crack, but I think we've got to take this on, man. We've got to keep this going. We've try not to kind of put ourselves under so much pressure, a lot of pressure, so to speak. But keep. I think we've done our business pretty quietly. I think a lot of the talk's been on how how good St Johnstone have been and how much they're running away with it. And how shite Ross County have been or how shite Ayr have been. I think we've been kind of doing our business relatively quietly, getting the wins kind of under the radar. Now I think.
I was going to say, it was like I believe in the match broadcast after the Dunfermline Raith game, it was like,
Mhm.
obviously it showed the table and it said St Johnstone running away with it, and it was like they're 6 points clear and Partick have a game in hand, and now
Yeah,
it's like 5 days later, level of points.
yeah.
you know,
I saw that. I know. I mean, I think if you look at a table like that, I don't know if it's a case of them can I not pay attention to the rest of the league and just what they see on a Friday night. But um, if you see a league and the team at the top of the table with 6 points ahead, you're going to go, yeah, they are running away with it, but they're not. I don't think they're not at the moment. So I'm not. I don't want to jinx it and say, yeah, we're going to win the league. We're going to, St Johnstone are going to ball it and we're going to run away with it. I think there's still a lot of football to be played, but it certainly just you know, gave us something to go towards. You know what I mean? And I, it's certainly good being a Thistle fan at the moment.
I've not had the chance to watch any highlights from this game, so I'm just basing my kind of my opinions on the result itself, I suppose.
Mhm.
I have to say though, I thought obviously Thistle have been on this fantastic run of form. They haven't lost in what was it, 10 games now? They've been nine,
10
obviously
games,
going in,
yeah.
yeah, nine going into that one yesterday. And I have like given that Ayr have turned a wee bit of a corner, have been playing some good football and picking up some really positive results. I did wonder whether this might be the one where that could potentially be snapped.
Hmm.
And when Ayr scored as well, I'm thinking, okay, maybe looking more likely than not at this point. But you have to say it's a brilliant result, and I don't really, I haven't seen much of this other than the one game that we played against you guys at Leicester a few weeks ago.
Hmm.
Um, but I feel as though it's just you've just got a really really well organised team, and that can take you far. That can really, you can go the distance with that. So they're possibly one of the most interesting teams in the championship for me. I didn't think I didn't buy into the hysteria before the season that Thistle fans were talking about taking eighth before the season starts and stuff like that. I had you either third or fourth in my predictions before the season started because at least defensively you've got a very good team. The question marks are more around scoring goals, but he's scoring certainly enough goals to get the results, and that's what really matters in the end.
Definitely.
So yeah, I just I don't know. Just a really I think Thistle could still finish anywhere from first to potentially fifth or sixth if they go on a bad run of form. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, I think it's just the nature of the beast of this league. I think I've said it so many times on here, but
Yeah,
aye, you can't take your position for granted as much as it is good being level on points with St Johnstone at the top. A couple of bad results, you're right back down there. You know what I mean? You're scrambling for the playoffs and scrambling to keep your position in the league. So, but I know I generally for us, I think it's just taking it game by game, not getting carried away with ourselves. While meanwhile, it is hard to not do that while you're joint top. You know what I mean? It's hard to not kind of get carried away with things, but certainly I think just again taking things game by game. Who keep picking up wins, you'll never know what happens.
I'm starting to wonder. It's like I do have in my thing here Thistle title charge, but I'm starting to wonder if we're seeing a sort of parallel to Raith a couple seasons back. It's like you've had Dundee United come down, look like they were going to run away with it, get into like a iffy run of form. Raith caught up to them, beat them, and then of course we had like this whole sort of ding dong until about March before that sort of came away. Thistle play St Johnstone in a month,
Yeah.
exactly 22nd of November. In that time, you've got Raith away, and as the next one we look shite. But of course, the record is there.
Aye.
You then have Queen's Park and Airdrie,
You always beat us.
and
You
then
always beat us
Dunfermline.
regardless.
So it'll be very interesting to see how the next month goes for Thistle.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if going into that game, Thistle are actually top of the league rather than St Johnstone.
Yeah.
Oh.
Aye. Definitely. I mean, there are some kind of tricky ties. Obviously, Raith away. We've not won there since March 2011. I'm not counting the playoff, even though we did win in 90 minutes. I'm not counting that. Before we get before we lost in the penalties, but I Queens Park at home. Certainly, I think you would be expecting to beat them. As you say, a record kind of speaks for itself, but records are there to be broken as well, Enzo.
I'm also, by the way, I'm not going to that game, and the only because I'm away on holiday, and the only game that I've missed in like the last 7 or 8 months is the only game that we've won in that time as well. So
Here we go.
That's 3-0 Queens Park right there then. But then we've got Airdrie on a Friday night, November 7th, and certainly if I said we're due giving a team a pumping, it could be there. But Airdrie always make it tough for us. I think have your own theories of how you view Airdrie away, but I think it's necessarily quite a tough place for us. It's always been kind of tight. It's been kind of tight contested with us and Airdrie. I think they probably deserved to beat us at 4-0. I thought we robbed them in the Friday night game. I think it was September. I think when we played them. I thought we were certainly pretty lucky to come away with a win, but again, quick turnaround, and we were 2-1. We were 2-0 up, 2-1 up. Sorry. But and then Dunfermline at home. I think I can go 50-50 really. I think Dunfermline are in a good bit of form. They'll carry that form. When by the time we play them, and then obviously 22nd we've got St John's. I think that's potential to be first versus second again. Anything can happen in the league. Who knows? But by that time, but certainly looking forward to it. I think certainly the fixtures are in our favour.
And then meanwhile, it's like obviously they come away with a defeat, but the way that they've been playing these last few, they're starting to look a lot more like the team that we predicted them to be this season. They definitely look like a team that's destined for the playoffs. They've had some very good performances. So, as Scott Brown's United is back. But I suppose it leaves us. We've covered all the games, finally. Time for the table, which unfortunately I do have to read out. So, as mentioned, it's St Johnstone and Thistle, both on 24 points, all the difference being about 6 in goal difference. That first game of the season really being a difference maker right now. Arbroath remain third, somehow, quite incredibly, and they still have a negative goal difference, which is interesting. Then it's Ayr in fourth, a point behind, and it's Dunfermline fifth and Raith sixth. Morton seventh on 11 points. Queen's Park at eighth on 9 points. Ninth is Ross County on 8 points, and then adrift at the bottom on 4 points is Airdrie, who have managed to concede 20 goals this season. I think the next worst defences are both on 18, but then they have the 5-0 just sat there. But it's like next week's fixtures. Where are we? Oh, I've skipped way ahead. What's going on here? Next week's fixtures we have Greenock Morton at home to St Johnstone, guaranteed 0-0. I'm calling it right now. Airdrie are at home to Arbroath. Queen's Park at home to Ayr. Enzo, what are your thoughts going into this one?
It depends on who's fit. Honestly, I feel as though I spent the entire segment, the entire Queen's Park Airdrie segment, talking about how much we miss Josh Fowler when he's not there. If he's back in 100%, I give us a chance. If he's not, then I think the best we can possibly hope for is nothing each, unfortunately. We are very capable defensively when everybody's switched on and fit again, and that's why I think we could potentially still stifle them and get a draw without Josh. But if he's in, then I don't see any reason why we can't potentially even win it. I wouldn't back us, obviously. I'm not that mental.
And the other two fixtures, Ross County against Dunfermline, and then, of course, the big one, Raith against Thistle. I'm going to be there. I don't think I'm going to enjoy it. I don't think I'm going to enjoy a happy Kieran Ashton in the pub afterwards.
Nah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many times I've been to Kirkcaldy. I think I'm on my fifth visit to Kirkcaldy now, maybe fourth or fifth visit to Kirkcaldy. I've never seen us win. So I've never been on the winning team at all, and or the winning outcome if you count the bloody playoff semi final. I've never seen us win there. Will that change on Saturday? Records are meant to be broken. You know what I mean? Records are there to be broken. I would back us certainly, but I mean, I don't know what happens to us. We just turn into absolute tubes whenever we step inside Kirkcaldy. I don't know what happens. As soon as I don't know, as soon as we just step into Kirkcaldy, we're not a team. We end up, I don't, I think if I said the word, I think it'd be cancelled on air. So, I would
You're
back it
allowed to
certainly.
say no yet.
I think how Raith have kind of played and how they looked on Friday night, I think we could definitely back us, but I've seen this story before. Everything falls apart in Kirkcaldy, so I'll take it. I'll take it with a pinch of salt. See what happens, but nonetheless, looking forward to my trip to Kirkcaldy.
So that's us for this episode. Bumper one, well done if you made it to the end. I hope my rant at the beginning not put everyone off, but yes, that is it for this week, and we will be back for this week's fixtures. So bye for now.
Catch you after.
Cheers.